Some argue that technology is at the very heart of the trade dispute between US and China, and a key component of technology and the race for supremacy is artificial intelligence. The current view is that the US is the world leader in AI, but the Chinese government has made AI a top policy priority, and appears to be making progress at really a breathtaking pace. The AI race and its impact on the world, from politics and business, jobs and industry, society as a whole, will perhaps be the story of the century, shaping lives of millions, if not hundreds of millions. And we are joined now by one of the pioneers in artificial intelligence. Dr. Kai-Fu Lee is chairman and CEO of Sinovation Ventures, and he really is one of the world's leading thinkers on AI. In his recently published book, AI Superpowers, China, Silicon Valley, and the New World Order, Kai-Fu Lee urges the US and China to accept and embrace the great responsibilities that come with significant technological power. It is my great pleasure to welcome to the stage Dr. Kai-Fu Lee.
Thank you so much. It's a real pleasure to be here. And all the premises are actually wrong. US is not clearly ahead in artificial intelligence. China's AI is doing great. AI government's helping, but not fundamental to China's success. And AI is not a zero-sum game. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about. First, what is artificial intelligence? Actually, before I show you the applications, let me talk about fundamentally what it is. Many of you may think artificial intelligence is from science fiction, this sentient being that's close to or surpasses human intelligence. That thing does not exist. We don't know how to build it. What artificial intelligence is a set of very clearly brilliant computer science algorithms that if you take one single domain and feed a ton of data to it, it will do superhuman job for that one domain and that domain only. That is all artificial intelligence is today. Can there be breakthroughs? Possibly, but today we're in the phase of building, implementing, applying, and monetizing that set of technologies. And that is what AI is. So in any problem that can be boiled down to single domain, huge amount of data, then we can produce tremendous value from artificial intelligence. So in terms of applications, and I'll try to use these applications to illustrate my point on where it can be applied, obviously there are multiple areas in which this can be applied. Google search and all the way up to autonomous vehicles are fundamentally propelled by the same set of algorithms I talked to you about. So obviously the first one that we've already embraced is internet AI. That is, every day we're clicking on Facebook and Amazon, we are willing lab rats that are labeling data for them. We're telling Facebook, this is the kind of article I want to see, and by the way, show them to other people like me. And it gives Facebook an amazing knob that allows them to say, I want to keep showing people things that will deliver a certain objective function. And that function might be more minutes per user. That function might be greater forwarding and therefore virality, or it might be maximize my revenue or profit. Think about a CEO who now has these wonderful knobs they can tweak to maximize business metrics. And that's why internet companies have done so well. And the greatest, most powerful, most valuable AI companies today are the AI companies. Amazon, Google, Facebook, Alibaba, and Tencent. Now the second wave is businesses that make use of AI. Banks, insurance companies, government agencies that have collected a lot of data primarily for archival reasons, now finding themselves sitting on a gold mine that can make use out of that. For example, a bank might use all of its customer transactions to do credit card fraud detection, loan determination, asset allocation, and also showing ads, selling products, targeting the right products to the right customers based on their projected buying patterns and their net worth and so on. So it suddenly makes all that data that used to be a cost center now a gold mine. But let me give you an example here to hopefully clarify the point why AI is so powerful. We have invested in a company that is a loan app. That's not a bank, it's a loan app. What it does is on your phone, you can open the app and ask to borrow, let's say, $500. And it will ask you the same questions that any loan application would ask: name, address, employer, income, and so on. You fill it out, and then it has one additional question that says, upload your data from your phone. Now, before you all get frightened, not all your data, the same data that iOS and Android permit companies like Facebook and Twitter to upload. Nothing more, nothing less. And when that's all uploaded, the AI absorbs all the data you submit, compare it against all the other users it has observed based on whether they returned the loan or defaulted, to make a determination which class you're closer to. So who would like to guess, if you were to step outside of this building and take $500,000 and give it to, let's say, 3,000 people randomly on the street, and you pick 1,000 to each give 500 and say, please pay me back with interest, what default rate do you think you'll get? 80%? 90%? Well, it's Singapore, maybe 60%. But still very high, right? But this loan app has a default rate of 3%. And that illustrates the power of AI. So how does it achieve that? It considers all kinds of things you submitted, things you explicitly provided, and things you implicitly provided, like your contact list. Who's on your contact list? Does your mom match your real mom? How long it took you to type your address? If it takes too long to type your own address, it's likely to be fraud, isn't it? And also, what kind of phone you have, what kind of apps you have, what day of the month is it? Is it before payday or after payday? So it gathers all of these things, and we actually, out of curiosity, it gathers 3,000 things. We looked at the least important feature. So keep in mind, this is not very unimportant, but nevertheless, still a useful signal. It turns out to be your battery level. Your battery level is slightly correlated with your likelihood to return the loan. So if you're someone who has an OCD and plugs the phone all the time, probably pretty responsible. If you're someone who keeps running out, well, it increases the 0.0001 chance you might not get a loan. None of these features dominate, so do not think that it actually uses the information alone to make a decision. It correlates in a 3,000-dimensional space and leading to this final decision, something humans can't possibly do. Now, then we move on to wave 3, and that is using sensors, cameras, and microphones to gather information in the real world that's otherwise transient and lost, and use those to build new applications. Amazon Echo is an example, a speech recognition, but cameras are a more interesting example. We read a lot about face recognition, so let me again share with you some recent news from China. There is a very famous singer named Jackie Chung, Zhang Xueyou. Anybody heard of him? You like him? No? Well, he's a very famous singer, about my age, but older singer, very, very famous. People my age really, and maybe a little younger, really like him. And he had these series of 5 concerts in China. And now he has a new nickname. It's called Policeman Chung, because these large stadiums were hooked with cameras for the protection of the safety of those in the concert, because there are too many people. And those cameras are hooked with face recognition, which are connected to the most wanted database, which we don't know how many entries, but might be 100,000. So perhaps 100 people were apprehended, and it turned out about 30 of them were in fact in the most wanted list. So it shows you the kind of, I'm not advocating or denouncing such an application. I'm merely citing a fact that the powerful nature of face recognition has gotten to a stage that it could recognize 100,000. In fact, it can do 3 million faces in 60 frames a second and makes an immediate determination of someone who might match a photograph out of a giant database of 3 million faces. Now, how many of you can recognize 3 million faces, or 300,000, or 30,000? So this, again, shows you the power of AI in this area. Of course, to carry it further, you can have autonomous stores. You can have that looks at not only your face, but your gesture, your intent, what you put in your basket, and then charge you directly. So it will make the future of convenience stores and supermarkets completely human-free. In the wave 4, we go into robots and autonomous vehicles. Robots for agriculture that can selectively water and fertilize based on the growth of each plant, and also pick fruits instead of humans picking them in factories for inspection and eventually for assembly of anything. And in commercial uses, dishwashing, that is throw everything from the tablecloth and just put it in the machine, they all come out ordered. You want that? It's $300,000, I'll be taking an order. And that's an interesting fact, because all of these will go from the people who are willing to pay for it. A restaurant that will displace maybe 10 dishwashers and get the 300,000 back in 1 year, and after that, it's free. So this will basically, in volume and over time, make the robotic capabilities more pervasive. And autonomous driving is also something, is probably the largest app of them all. It will change the way we transport ourselves, our logistics, our delivery. There will be no drivers 30 years from now. Everything will be done autonomously, and that means a great improvement to not just convenience, but also our money, because your car is the worst investment you've made. It's sitting there doing nothing 96% of the time other than depreciating. So we'll have shared vehicles that come just as you need them, that reliably, in a green energy manner, take you or your merchandise from place A to place B reliably. So it's very convenient, it's cost savings, and it's also going to be safer. Because one very critical thing about AI is the more data it gathers, the better it gets. So hopefully this gives you an idea about the 4 waves, each of which will add something like 5+% to our GDP, and maybe displace 5% or so of the workforce. And this is only the beginning. How many waves are there? We don't know. It's like going back 20 years at the internet, onset of internet, and asking how many waves would there be. Probably at the time, I would have told you 4 waves. There are the websites, browser, portals, and search engine. That's all I can tell you. I didn't know at the time that e-commerce, social, online to offline, mobile payment would become as large as they are. So this is only the beginning. Now, as I said, this AI only works on the premise of large amount of data, the more the better, and accurate tagging, ideally outcome-based, not human-labeled, in a single domain, and with a large amount of compute, and with some AI experts to tweak it. So now let's go to the US and China question. One would easily cite that the top AI researchers are all American, some Canadian, some British, but mostly Americans. So how could America not be the world's leader in AI? But I bring up 3 important facts for you to consider that might change your mind. First is that AI is not some secret sauce. AI is a breakthrough, a set of breakthroughs, only one very big breakthrough, and these breakthroughs are well understood and accessible to any country, including US, China, UK, Canada, and so on. These AI scientists have a very open mind to share, so unless there's another breakthrough that is protected, the world is on basically level playing field. The second important thing is that because of this, we've moved from the early stage of the deep mind kind of company, which is researcher-driven, technology-driven, and then can build any application on the great technologies. PhDs run these companies. But now we're at a stage when it's understood by many people, not with the same depth as the people in DeepMind, but enough to be dangerous, enough to create these applications that I told you about. and that potentially changes the capabilities of companies. And thirdly, AI people are the most open-minded people I know. This, I actually have a little contribution myself. In 1987, when I built the world's first speaker-independent speech recognition system, most of my colleagues in speech didn't believe that it worked as well as my paper showed. So I asked my advisor, Raj Reddy, Turing Award recipient, what should I do? And he said, very simple, open source your code base and give them all the data you used so they can replicate it and build on top of that. And that is the spirit in which computer vision, speech recognition, machine translation continue to build. Because AI, unlike traditional sciences, experiments can be replicated. Same data, same algorithm, always the same results. So people are transparent, open, sharing, and build on each other. So with these three observations, here's where China comes in. China may not be ahead in research. In fact, we can pretty much say US has 11 times more top researchers than China. But that is only valuable if a next breakthrough comes. And that breakthrough is not shared in the open manner, okay? So for now, let's assume there are no breakthroughs for the next 5 to 10 years. We all want there to be, but let's assume there's not. And there's a reasonable chance there's not, because we saw in the 62 years of history of AI, there was only one breakthrough, and that was 9 years ago. So anyway, so if we're in an era of implementation, well, China is getting pretty good at writing papers. While the top 1,000 researchers are largely American, the top 100,000 actually has 42% who are Chinese. The Chinese products are getting innovative. Without going into details, these three columns represent China as a copycat, China as a worthy competitor building on originally American concepts, but evolving into new their applications. And most recently, in the last 5 years, China as a true innovator. Each of the products under the orange is an original innovative product that doesn't exist in the West. And I don't have enough time to go into them. I can only tell you that they are totally worth about 300 billion US dollars. And to build these great products, China has great entrepreneurs who are tenacious and have built up a very different model for building great companies. The American model is vision-driven, change the world, make it light. The China model is tenacious, winner take all, and make it heavy. What do I mean make it heavy? Well, when you're surrounded with people who might be copycats, who might take your product or feature, I'm not talking about IP theft, I'm talking about just the feature, as Facebook took some of Snapchat's features. That kind of building on each other's strengths that are not IP protected. When you're surrounded by copycats, the only way to win is to build a business that can't be copied. And that is the essence of China's new business model. To give a very quick example, in the US, there's companies like Yelp, but in China, there's Meituan. Meituan as a company built such an incredible, uncopyable capability by delivering, finding a way to deliver food to anyone who wants it from 500 restaurants within 30 minutes for 70 US cents. And when that happens, people's way of eating changes, and they've erected such a high wall that a competitor would have to replicate such an exercise, which costs billions of dollars and involves 600,000 people with paid minimally with high turnover on electrical mopeds and figure out a way to change batteries and AI algorithms that runs on them. So that is how you build impregnable business models. And AI has more funding in China, and Chinese companies with this funding, 48% of the world's AI funding go to China, 38% to the US. So China is benefiting from this money. And here I show 5 companies that Sinovation Ventures we invested in, and they're worth a total of $21 billion, 5 unicorns in AI. Totally, China has about 18 unicorns in AI. These are all pure plays. I think it's larger than any country as a result of the factors I mentioned. But nothing is as important as the massive amount of data. The right part of the graph here shows different algorithms, get different results, but more data is always better. There's no data like more data. This is a very famous phrase spoken by in the speech community, spoken by none other than Dr. Bob Mercer, the founder of Cambridge Analytica. But before Cambridge Analytica, he was an esteemed speech recognition researcher that I learned much from. What he did later was something that actually surprised many of us. But in the age of AI, if data is the new oil, then China is the new OPEC. And that means China has more users, 3 times as much as the US on the upper left, but also more usage. Chinese takeouts are 10 times more than US, as I mentioned in Meituan. China's shared bicycle is 300 times more, and China's mobile payment is 50 times more than the US. And that is a very critical component. In fact, China's mobile payment is actually more than China's own GDP. And when you go to China, you will find very few people accept cash and credit cards. This has many implications. It means for the Western economy, credit cards are taking 2% toll on the whole economy. And that's something that should be reconsidered. That also means it's efficient, faster. New entrepreneurs can make money the first month without waiting to build up the user base. It also means it's turning China's economy from a savings economy to a spending economy, as credit card did for the US, but much faster. And finally, it means this creates so much data, because what data is valuable, more valuable than transaction data? This is much better than browsing, clicking. This is real money out of the pocket, indicating you wanted something so much you paid money for it. And lastly, there is the government support, which I think is very important, but not the most critical factor, because all of the unicorns we funded are privately funded up through their becoming unicorn. Of course, the government now helps a lot of companies, but I think the 18 unicorns, probably 15 would have happened without any government support. So the Chinese government policy is techno-utilitarian. This means Chinese government will let some technology be tried and figure out how to regulate it as it goes along. That is how the mobile payment took place. In the West, there probably would be lobbyists from credit card companies that would say, oh, software companies, they're not safe, there could be hacked, there could be fraud. But Chinese government said, well, let's give Alibaba and Tencent a try, and they proved themselves worthy. Of course, Chinese government is not always totally open door for every technology. Crypto, for example, is not legal in China. And another important thing is the left side shows the State Council document putting AI as a national priority. That actually doesn't put budget into building AI, but it gives a directional point of direction for cities and banks. Banks might be more open to adopting AI. They bought some of our AI software after the State Council document came out. It would cause some cities to say, like Nanjing, would say, we have a lot of good universities. Let's build the world's largest AI park. Zhejiang province would say, autonomous vehicles important. Let's build highways that help autonomous vehicle. And a new city of Xiong'an is being built with autonomous vehicle in mind. In fact, the downtown of Xiong'an would have 2 layers, pedestrians on the top layer, cars on the bottom layer, thereby avoiding what we saw in Phoenix with the worst case of accident, a car hitting a pedestrian. And that might accelerate the adoption of autonomous vehicle, despite the fact that US is ahead right now. So if we look at where is US and China, I would say that China has come from behind and now roughly caught up and will soon probably slightly lead the US in AI implementation. Even though AI research, US is still ahead. But I do want to close by saying that this is really not a zero-sum game, because the Chinese success does not come at the expense of American companies. The Chinese companies are actually built on a parallel universe, that I think it is an amazing future where AI has arrived, and it's driven by the two AI superpowers, and I hope there's a way the 2 superpowers can work together to make and take the responsibility and make the world a better place. Thank you.
I checked my phone. I have about a 92% charge, which means
Right.
probably I'm sad and lonely more than anything
Here's
else.
some money.
Fascinating stuff, really, absolutely staggering. But the data question is where China has a huge advantage. Yes. In these times of what we term data nationalism, where there's more concern and legislative protection, for want of a better term, around data, does that give China yet another advantage because the regulatory environment allows it to use data?
Well, in terms of if the future becomes where data is more to stay in the border of each country, I think China does have a certain advantage because homogeneous data is more valuable than heterogeneous data. So China, as the world's largest country with the same language and culture, can really build models off of what China has. So that's probably the first part of the answer to your question. I'm not sure if the second part you're suggesting in China a lot of data are pooled, enhanced by the government. Yeah. That actually is largely not the case. Right. The companies that we have funded, they basically, the key to success is either building your own proprietary data and the outcome-based labeling loop, like the loan company. The loan company built up its data with the VC's money, right? To build that loan company, they raised $10 million, lost it all to people who defaulted them. And then they built a model. Then they raised another $30 million and lost it all again. Each time lowering the default rate, but that data is proprietary to the company. It is not accessible by other companies, and the government does not really take that data and aggregate it in any sense.
Do you see this AI race as part of the broader tensions between the US and China at the moment? Because technology is certainly a key issue for President Trump and the administration.
Yeah, it really, I think it is today. Yeah. And I wish it weren't. And the reason it shouldn't be is because it's all open source, ready to be shared. It has the world's academicians with such willingness to help and support each other to build the industry forward. So it seems it's incumbent in the US and China as the world's leaders to take the responsibility, benefit from AI, and face the challenges AI brings and help the rest of the world move forward. That would be, I think, the high road. I think the US government has chosen not to take that direction, which I think is based on some possible misunderstanding about that US has some hypothetical large edge, or that the US researchers actually have ways to protect any new inventions that are made. I think if you actually look at the US, I think the best thing that could be done is to attract more research to help the next research come about with a high likelihood of being shared, and spend our time focused on all the issues that AI brings about. Because I talked about all the positives, all the ways to make money, $17 trillion by PwC estimates in the next 11 years. But we haven't looked at the downside. There are huge issues with privacy, data bias, security, job displacement, monopolies, and wealth inequality. It seems like governments now more than ever need to put their heads together and figure out what needs to be done.
But you've been a strong advocate of policy change ahead of job displacement in particular.
That's, yes, one example.
Are governments taking this seriously?
I think not. I think the displacements, you can just look at what I described. In a single domain, large amount of data, do better than human. And you can enumerate probably easily 20 or 30 professions that will be challenged and partially or fully displaced. So the governments have a hard time making this a priority because unemployment numbers are not yet high. But once it starts to go up, it might go up very fast and be harder to control.
There's probably a corporate responsibility as well here, but given the pressure on companies to deliver bottom line, especially listed companies,
yeah.
Do you get a sense that that businesses are aware of the social changes caused by AI and are gearing up?
Well, I think the AI companies are definitely aware. but they don't want to talk about it because it's a PR problem, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, so that's why I wrote the book that I wrote, so that more people can be aware this is an issue that will come up. This is not a statement that unemployment will go dramatically high. It just says there's going to be a dislocation of skills. Because if AI can do at some point in next 15 years all routine tasks, then people who have routine tasks will be displaced without any way to get employed again unless they took on retraining and went into a non-routine task.
But it's not just blue-collar workers. There are also some professions which will be affected by AI.
Blue-collar workers are actually a little bit difficult to displace because our hand-eye coordination are really amazing, and robotics are not yet at that level. On the other hand, white-collar jobs, such as customer service, telemarketing, telesales, loan officers, it's just algorithms, just software, just data that will displace these jobs. Citi has already announced they will let go 10,000 of their 20,000 back office operational workers and replacing them with automation.
You said at the opening that one could argue the US isn't actually in lead of AI. Depends on the measure, I guess.
Right.
But China is almost certain to take the lead in the foreseeable future. Is that the case?
Well, let's say they will co-lead. I think I wouldn't underestimate Silicon Valley innovations. So let's say, I think my last picture in 5 years out shows US and China co-leading the implementation with an added kicker that should a breakthrough come by in the US might retake the lead. So let's just say US and China will co-lead. That, I think, is certainty. It's like in the Olympic competition, there are only 3 medals. In the AI competition, there are only 2 medals. Who is gold and who is silver is not known, but there is no bronze medal.
Yeah. What about other countries outside those superpowers? When they co-lead AI, and AI brings about such fundamental change to politics, to business, to economics, there's a chance that countries will be left behind.
Yes, in particular, developing countries.
Yeah.
Because previously, they could look forward to the China model or the India model of outsourcing blue-collar work or white-collar work. But if those are, number one, outsourceable to another country, number two, routine in nature, then they're by definition doable by AI. So the China model and the India model towards development is now no longer a viable option. That's a particular issue for them. And then I think in the developed countries, I do think some countries still have a shot if they get their national policies in order. UK, Canada, Singapore, Israel, France are some of the examples where we think the book ought to be a sound an alarm to have them to say, wait a minute, I'm going to create a bronze medal even though there isn't one now.
The breakthrough, you said that there may be a breakthrough. What would that breakthrough look like? What for non-technologists like myself, what's in the frame? What are the researchers looking for?
Sure. For example, making autonomous vehicle L5 suddenly work. And that will probably not be open source technology. So whoever makes that work first and do so in a non-open source manner, I don't see why that has to be open source. That would be one huge breakthrough. I think figuring out how to train AI with less data, that would be another big breakthrough. That's not only very useful, but it would neutralize China's advantage. Yeah. Those are 2 examples.
Well, just finally, where are you looking? Because you've invested clearly in some what are now very successful companies. Are you looking in China and at particular sectors or particular types of app? Where are you looking?
I think the biggest opportunity that's yet not fully harvested is financial. Because financial markets, financial applications, banks, insurance, trading are basically human fabricated games of numbers. And there's no friction of operation, manufacturing, logistics. That complicates the whole thing. And when AI is applied to these domains, basically you build something that prints cash and you've got a knob. So that's hardly been fully done. Of course, there are obstacles such as regulations and incumbents and things like that. That's the easiest. The most aspirational is healthcare, and that's one we're starting to look at. But frankly, that's very hard because we need high quality and large quantities of data. China has high quantities, but the quality is not good enough. US has high quality, but the hospitals don't understand the importance of quantity. So they focus on the 10,000 records they have and the leadership they can maintain as opposed to some kind of pooling. So that's a very, very big one that I think we all want to see, but it's a little bit difficult now.
I'm afraid we're out of time. Your final answer leads very nicely into our next panel, where we're going to be looking specifically at tech and financial services. But congratulations on the book. Thank you for speaking despite your laryngitis. Thank you for powering through. Please join me in thanking Dr. Kai-Fu Lee.